Netflix, it took them about 8 to 10 years to get to that number. And it wasn't even like 3 years ago that Netflix completed its global launch. Disney has laid out a more systematic, much faster international rollout, which makes us to believe that for them to get to that number globally will be, a lot faster. So to your point, I think the content layout that we saw yesterday, to be honest with you, I think it's really, mind-blowing here. And they're going to add to that. The price point is pretty aggressive. I think the value proposition is unquestionably very compelling with some pricing flexibility.
I think it's interesting to think that maybe we're being too conservative, because the thing that Netflix didn't have was the full technology rollout that would support streaming services. Disney has that in place, or at least has the system that Netflix currently has. Plus, it has the 5G, which is going to roll out eventually, and that could actually help add these people to their service.
And they've got the content, right? You've got all the big tech companies right now wanting to play in content. Amazon playing in content. Apple, who had announced their Apple TV Plus. We're going to have another Plus service around the same time here. They've got 90 years of content. I mean, as a parent, I'm like, yeah, sign me up. Again, I for sure feel like we're going to be paying 3 times this amount in a couple of years, but for now, I'm good.
I take your point, but Joanna, but Tuna, when I heard $6.99 or whatever it is, I thought that's genius.
Yeah,
because they're coming in, and people go, well, $6.99.
But I'll try it.
I'll try that for $6.99.
I'll try it.
That's going to attract a lot of people up front.
That's right, and there were actually gasps in the presentation when they threw out that number. Bob Iger had said that the pricing will be substantially below Netflix, but $6.99. I think that was actually pushing it. And to Melissa's point, I think there's a number of secular and technological tailwinds that will, benefit Disney much more than Netflix. Talk about the broadband households penetration worldwide, the transition to 5G. All of these things, I think, really bode well for accelerated subscriber
yesterday, Tuna, we had you on, we were in anticipation of this, and I asked you a question, rather clumsily, by the way, about whether we were getting to a point where there's so many of these streaming services that we're really just replicating cable. You said no, but you say yes.
Oh, I say yes.
Why?
Because I'm already paying them. I'm already paying what I would pay in streaming services alone, and I still pay for cable. I mean, guys, why am I spending so much? That's what I'm really here to talk about. But I'm paying for Amazon. I'm paying for Netflix. I'm paying for Hulu. I'm definitely going to be paying for Disney. That's 4 channels, right? And Apple Plus that's coming out.
Suites of...
I would argue the opposite, because look at the pent-up demand for streaming, right? I think we're still barely scratching the surface here, especially globally, right? Where the secular trends are quite favorable. The broadband penetration is relatively low. And remember, as the pay TV, service, universe continues to decline, there's nothing to stop people from kind of mixing and matching. Everyone is looking to create a synthetic bundle at a much lower cost. So when we think about the opportunity over the long term, we think that there's a lot of runway left. And that's what I was trying to explain to you yesterday.
So when you have a buy rating on Netflix and a $4.25 price target, when you see the reaction of Netflix stock today, do you think that's the wrong stock to take market cap off of on the back of Disney? It should really be the cable providers, the networks, et cetera, not Netflix.
That's a good point, because I think the concerns with Netflix reaction are somewhat overdone, right? I mean, this is a phenomenon that I think Netflix and Disney are going to be unquestionably among the potential winners. So I don't want to kind of subscribe to a knee-jerk reaction here, simply because, Disney has made a very impressive presentation that you've got a Netflix killer here. That's not what we're calling here.
Who I wonder about, I don't know which of you wants to take this, but is it the other programmers? In a world where Viacom is fighting for relevance, how can you compete with all these offerings from Disney, from Netflix, from Hulu? So going back, Joanna, to the programmers who are in the traditional bundle, they can't come out with something this compelling.
No,
so where does that leave them?
Then they get gobbled up by another service, and they get, they're splitting the revenue, and they're putting some of their programming on a Hulu or whatever they are at, and we're also then trying to all figure out, like, we need the TV guide of today, right? Where do we get all of this stuff? Where do we pay?
I think Disney is all in, right? To be successful in this space, you almost have to be all in. It's really like, over time, there's companies experimenting with different business models, maybe content, and just hesitating. I don't think that's the way that this kind of, shakes out. The winners are going to be those that commit fully, investing aggressively, and just basically jumping in with their 2 feet. And that's what Disney has made this call. And the numbers that they threw out here.
Does ESPN just not matter, Tuna, anymore? I mean, that is still in decline. Yes, the numbers for ESPN Plus look okay, but I think we're talking about, what they say, 6 to 8 million over by 2024. It's peanut, 8 to 12 million.
Right. You know, as much as, you know, your point is well taken, but that's a quadruple almost from where they are today.
For ESPN Plus.
For ESPN Plus.
They're still shedding people from the core ESPN.
You know, our forecast is that in the next 3 or 4 years, from an ecosystem perspective, the kind of the increase in all this online video, the online subscriber growth is going to start to outweigh the declines in the traditional television ecosystem, including ESPN. So that's a secular trend that's going to play out over the next several years. Investors are just starting to realize that now, and that's why you see the positive reaction on the Disney shares, which have, as you know, traded in quite some range and poised for now sustainable catalysts.